Queremos traer la mejor actualidad y las novedades de la música cristiana. Hoy tenemos un gran invitado que viene desde los Estados Unidos, desde Arkansas. Estamos hablando con el guitarrista Jason Truby.
Glad to be here, man.
Háblanos de tus inicios musicales.
Well, I started really young, Mike. I was about 12 years old when I got my first guitar, and I never was able to get training. We just didn't have money for that, so I was really on my own. And some reason I learned the patterns. It all just made sense to me, and I started writing by the time I was 14. And I listened to a lot of rock and roll. I listened to a lot of jazz music and a lot of fingerstyle acoustic music, and got in my first band around, like I said, around 14 years old. And then I met up, actually through playing a show with those guys, I met up with the Living Sacrifice guys. I invited them to one of my shows. And we hit it off, and next thing you know, we were putting some music together, and I still was probably only about 16 years old at that time. But I fell in love with music. I fell in love with the patterns of guitar, and started studying classical and flamenco and jazz and rock, and I just dove into it with everything I had. And it really was a way for me to get connected to my faith deeper, because once I figured out that I needed to seek the creator and not just the creation, it made my playing take off, because I wasn't in the wrong spot. I wasn't seeking to be great. I was seeking to be close to the Lord. And I mean that. Like, it's not perfect, and I'm not perfect. It's kind of like hitting bad notes, right? But he really summoned me through that, and I'm so glad that he did. And then all these years later, I'm still making music.
Por favor, háblanos acerca de tus influencias musicales.
That's a tough one, because it started when I was young, listening to things like, I heard 70s music when I was a kid, and some great like guitar players. But as it developed and I got into the heavier music, I really liked Sepultura. I really liked some of the heavier stuff. Like we listened to, Black Sabbath and all that stuff as a kid. But then I had a heart for melody. I just really liked beautiful melody. It didn't have to be heavy, but I like the heavy stuff, but it didn't have to be. So, as you know, like Phil Keaggy was an influence, Michael Hedges, some of the jazz stuff, John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk. I like a guy named Michael Hedges. And then in the more heavy side, I really learned how to play lead guitar by learning Jason Becker material. He was in a band called Cacophony with a guy named Marty Friedman, and I just would study arpeggios, and I would study for hours picking that stuff out. But then I always came back to the idea of melody. It was just really important to me. So those are some of them. But nowadays, Mike, if it's good and it's in the language of music, it's an influence. Anything I've ever heard, it's like, oh, that's cool. Maybe we could use that, put a twist on it. I don't really have any boundaries as long as it carries really good melody now.
¿Cómo es tu relación con tus anteriores bandas como Living Sacrifice y P.O.D?
Well, like, yeah, and you kind of tell me how much you want me to elaborate, but I met the Living Sacrifice guys, like I said, in like 88 or 89, and I had some tunes, and we started writing them, and we did a little demo, and then that turned into like a 10-year journey with 4 albums. And those guys are like going to be brothers for the rest of my life. We actually were planning on a reunion show. We actually rehearsed at the beginning of the year before all of the pandemic hit. And it's the first time I've jammed with those guys since 1998. And we went through all the old stuff, like the Reborn stuff. And so that was cool to see those guys. And then after, like, when I left Living Sacrifice, we had finished our fourth album, and it was just really hard to make a living. We were going to start a family, and we had put all of our energy into the Reborn album, and we toured the same circuit, and it just, we weren't able to survive financially. Doesn't mean that I was doing it to make money, but I couldn't feed my family. I couldn't pay my rent. And then we'd go play these shows, and I don't know if that's like contracts and labels and all the business side of it, but you know, it just wasn't working. So I stepped away. And then because we had toured with P.O.D on that particular album, I think we did a 6-week tour with those guys, and we became really good friends. And I guess a couple of years after I left Living Sacrifice, I think it was maybe 2002, the P.O.D guys reached out to me, and they had some issues that were happening, and they had an opportunity to write a song for the Matrix Reloaded movie, and they asked if I'd write one. And so I was like, sure. And we wrote one, and it ended up making it. And then they, at that time, couldn't resolve the issues they were having. And so they asked me to join the band. And so I did, and we wrote the Payable on Death album, and then toured it, and then wrote the Testify album. And then we toured that. I think we did an EP called Warriors 2, and then we did a Best Of album. And then after, I think it was right at the beginning of 2007, end of 2006, 2007, that it was the same thing. I knew that I didn't start that band, and we were touring all the time. And they didn't show signs of stopping. And I have 4 children, and I needed to be home. And so it was my time to step out at that moment, and it worked out well. But those guys are brothers as well. Like, I probably talk to Sonny the most. We stay in touch, Sonny and Wov. You know, those are just brothers for life, man. And so I love them. I'm so glad that they're continuing to do music. But yeah, that's kind of the quick story.
Háblanos acerca de tus nuevos proyectos musicales, bueno, como también lo es tu nuevo trabajo y más reciente, Making the Invisible.
Yeah, so I did my first instrumental album, Mike, when I was still in P.O.D. And in 2004, I did a guitar album called String Theory, and that was the first one I had done where it was just solo guitar. And I recorded that one in Colorado Springs, and it's like 24 different cuts. It's like kind of like acoustic sketches. It's just thoughts and ideas on guitar. And anyway, that led into other instrumental albums. I did one after that called Waiting on the Wind, which is another instrumental guitar album, and then another one after, a couple of years later, called Finding the Quiet. Then I did an album that I'm not sure a lot of people know about. It's called Entropy, and I think it's because I only put my name. I just put Truby. I didn't put Jason Truby, but it's a rock album where I play guitar and I sing on it, and it's a pretty cool album, man. Put a lot into that one. That was in 2009, and did a little bit of touring on it, but not like the old days. And then I did several more instrumental albums, one called Passages. I did a really cool project called Hymns, where I took like ancient Christian hymns and did variations on guitar and like clean electric guitar. And we actually did that one for a cancer hospital, to give to cancer patients and to give to families that are suffering or dealing with loss. And that ended up being really, really cool. Like, really went beyond my hands. Which led into, you know, a couple. I think the most recent one, which you asked about, Mapping the Invisible, at the beginning of this year, when all of the pandemic hit and the world is in such turmoil, I felt like, well, I'm going to use my time to write an album that deals with the emotions. So the beauty of being with the ones you love and your family, and then the pain of losing them, and the frustration of, you know, you may lose your job, but the hope that God's going to take care of you. So it's this lot of different emotions, ups and downs, and it's exactly what the title says. It's mapping the invisible, and you know, how do we talk about the Lord walking with us through something when we can't see him, and we get frustrated, but he's there and he's with us. And so this one was like really a cool, I could take my time on it, really express like open tunings and phrasings on the instrument that push it a little further than I have on some other albums. And I really like how it came out. And it's got tons of different flavors. It might be like a jazz tune, and it might be like this really deep, you know, single instrument ache, and it might have a little bit of a worldly vibe. It might have like there's about 15 tracks on it, and yeah, and so far the feedback's been really good that it's connected to some people in different ways. Some people like some songs, some people like others, but I really dig it.
Ok, Jason, vemos que tienes muchos trabajos discográficos. Cuéntanos, ¿son solo instrumentales o en ellos tú también cantas?
I do some singer-songwriter. I did a vocal album called Our Time Here, where I'm singing, and then I sang on Entropy. But the other, I think there's like 7 or so that are all instrumental because I just love guitar. And then like one album I did for Christmas, so it's like all songs about the birth of Jesus. And then I did one called The Day of Our Redemption, which is all songs about the resurrection of Jesus, which seems to get lost these days, that, you know, that really happened. That's not make-believe. Yeah, so I would say probably 7 or so instrumental, and then maybe 3 or 4 with vocals on them. Yeah, something like that.
Bueno, realmente vemos como los fans tanto de Living Sacrifice como de P.O.D. Pues te quieren mucho, te admiran porque tú imprimes mucha pasión y mucha dedicación a tu trabajo, y eso es lo que has reflejado en la mente y en el corazón de todos estos fans. Bueno, también queremos saber las redes sociales que tú tienes para que te podamos encontrar y escuchar tu música.
Okay, first of all, you can visit my website, jasontruby.com. So JASONTRUBY.com. And you can check out all the tunes I just mentioned. And you can find me on Facebook, or you can find me on Twitter. And yeah, I'm not good with the rest of that. And then if you are looking for the music, you can look on any streaming site like iTunes or Apple Music or Amazon Music. The other way, and I really mean this, Mike, because I want to stay connected to all the people that are friends of the music, and I call them friends, not fans, although I'm glad they like the music. But you guys can email me directly, Jason@jasontruby.com, if you want to order CDs, if you want to just tell me what you thought of the music, and that's my personal email, and I get back to as many of them as I can.
Ok, podemos encontrar en todas las plataformas digitales, en todos los streaming como iTunes, Spotify. Podemos encontrar su último trabajo. It's good.
You got it.
Sí, podemos encontrar todas sus canciones también, todos sus trabajos. Bueno, Jason, apreciamos realmente tu talento, pues el arte que haces por medio de la guitarra, componiendo. Es muy bueno porque lo pones primeramente al servicio de Dios, y creemos que eso es lo más importante porque traes un mensaje de fe y esperanza.
Yes, it is.
Bueno, pasamos un tiempo muy agradable en compañía de nuestro amigo desde los Estados Unidos, Jason Truby, un privilegio escucharlo, compartir con él y bueno, aprender y escuchar un poco de sus anécdotas y la experiencia que tuvo como guitarrista de estas dos grandes bandas y también, bueno, de lo que dejó él su trabajo como solista. No olviden estar muy pendientes de más podcasts que traemos acá y recuerden que su amigo Mike Chaves estuvo acompañándolos en esta oportunidad.
Hey friends, this is Jason from Living Sacrifice and P.O.D. Check out Reactivos podcast as soon as you can. It's going to be great. Thanks. What's up, Warriors, P.O.D. Latinos? This is Jason Truby saying what's up from the United States. I've been spending time here with Mike. I want you to know how much I appreciate your support and love. Thank you for listening to the music. Thank you for following and supporting the music. Much love always.